Morning students, in this video lesson we will study about menstruation cycle in detail. The rhythmic series of changes that occur in the reproductive organ of female primates, usually monkey, apes and human being, is known as menstruation cycle. The menstruation cycle usually begins in female at the age of puberty. The first appearance of the menstruation in female at the age of puberty is known as menarche. Similarly, when the menstruation cycle permanently stops in female, say around at the age of 50, this is called menopause. During the menstruation cycle, the inner wall of the uterus, which is usually known as endometrium, prepare itself for the pregnancy or the implantation of a fertilized egg. If at that time fertilization does not occur, the lining of the uterus, which is endometrium, usually shed from the body along with the blood vessels. This process is known as menstruation. So menstruation is usually the shedding of endometrium or the inner lining of the uterus along with the blood vessels. Menstruation cycle repeat at an average interval of about 28 to 29 days in female. One ovum is released in the middle, say usually around 14th day of each menstruation cycle. That means one ovum is released or the female is ready for the ovulation process from the 14th day of the menstruation. Suppose in any female, if the menstruation start on 1st, that means from 1st to 14th day of the menstruation, the ovum is ready to release, or that time is the time of ovulation in human female. If the fertilization occur at that time, so there are the chances of conception or pregnancy. Menstruation cycle usually occur in the following phases. Number 1, menstruation phase, in which the bleeding occur. Second is follicular phase, before the release of egg, that means before the 14th day of the ovulation or the menstruation. Third is ovulatory phase, when the egg is released, that means around the 14th day. Last is luteal phase, after the release of the egg, that means after the 14th day of menstruation. Here is the diagrammatic representation of various events that occur during the menstruation cycle. Students, you have to learn this menstruation cycle along with the diagram by heart, because this is the very common and repeatedly asked question of CBSE board examination. So first phase of menstruation cycle is menstrual phase, which is commonly known as bleeding period. It is the first phase of menstruation cycle that lasts for 3 to 5 days. In this process, breakdown of endometrium lining take place along with the blood vessels. These cells of the endometrium along with the blood vessel comes out of the vagina of the female in the form of bleeding. It occurs only when ovum is released but not fertilized. Lack of menstruation is the sign or indication of pregnancy. That means if a normal female miss her period and does not have any kind of hormonal imbalance, that there might be chances that she is pregnant. Next is the follicular phase or proliferative phase. The primary follicle in the ovary grows and becomes a fully mature Graafian follicle. The structure of primary follicle and the Graafian follicle we have already done in the previous session under the topic sectional view of ovary and also in the process of oogenesis. The endometrium of the uterus starts regenerating due to the secretion of LH and FSH, that means luteinizing hormone and follicular stimulating hormone, which are released from the anterior pituitary and ovarian hormone known as estrogen. This particular phase lasts for about 10 to 14 days in female. The level of FSH during the follicular phase decreases and the Graafian follicle begins to secrete estrogen. Level of estrogen increases at this phase, which help in the regeneration and proliferation of the uterine endometrium. Another phase is ovulatory phase, which usually occur at the 14th day of the menstruation. In this phase, rapid secretion of LH or luteinizing hormone induces the rupture of Graafian follicle, thereby leading to the ovulation or release of ovum. The egg or the ovum travels into the fallopian tube and is ready for the fertilization. This egg can survive for 12 to 24 hours after ovulation. The ovulatory phase usually lasts for 16 to 32 hours and ends when the egg is released. The last and very important phase is luteal phase, which usually begins after the ovulation. In this phase, the ruptured follicle changes into corpus luteum in the ovary and it begins to secrete the hormone progesterone. LH and FSH level at this stage becomes low and steady. At this stage, the progesterone secreted by the corpus luteum maintain the uterine endometrium or the endometrium cell lining of the uterus and prepare it for the implantation. At this stage, the uterine endometrium increases in thickness with increase in many folds due to the proliferation of the cell. Proliferation is the process in which the number or the area of the cell increases. If fertilization occurs at this stage, the corpus luteum grows further and pregnancy continues. At this stage, as soon as the pregnancy occurs in the female, the menstruation cycle stops up. At this stage, if the fertilization does not occur or if the ovum is not fertilized, the corpus luteum undergoes degeneration and this causes the disintegration of the endometrium leading to the menstruation. In the absence of fertilization, corpus luteum degenerate into corpus albicans and the progesterone level decreases. Menstruation cycle, as I told you earlier, stops around 50 years of age in human female and this condition is known as menopause. The luteal phase or the secretory phase usually lasts for only 1 day.